Welcome to the Soulful Insights podcast. I'm your host, Tandy. Today, in honor of Christmas, we are going to delve into the topic of Christ consciousness and what Yeshua, or Jesus, really came to teach us. I think it's important to draw a clear distinction between the Christian religion and the spirituality community. Fundamentally, the Christian religion often prioritizes the teachings of Paul over those of Jesus himself. So we see the subjugation of women and these ideas of biblical marriage and all of that come primarily from the teachings of Paul or other texts outside of what Jesus himself stated. Furthermore, many of Paul's teachings directly contradict the message and example set by Jesus. So from a spiritual perspective, it's important to make the shift and focus back onto Yeshua, or Jesus the Christ, and his teachings. And that's what we're going to do today. We're not going to look at anything else because I really feel like when you use the word Christ, you're talking about the Anointed One. Well, if we want to talk about teachings that we should follow, don't you think we should be following the teachings of the Anointed One versus the teachings of the people who followed him? I think it makes a lot more sense to follow the teachings of the one who was the Anointed One, the one who was the Enlightened One, not those who simply followed him. And sometimes followers can infuse their own ideology into the things that they say. And we see that a lot. As I said, Paul's teachings at times directly contradict the message of Jesus, and therefore we have an issue. And when this happens, oftentimes Christianity will prioritize Paul, and that's not what we're going to do here today. So we're going to start with defining what is Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness refers to a universal state of awareness that transcends religious boundaries, inviting individuals to embody divine qualities such as unconditional love, unity, compassion, honoring the dignity of all people, and spiritual awakening. It is not confined to doctrine or dogma, but reflects a profound inner alignment with the divine essence within us all. When we can see beyond the religious dogma and hierarchies created by religion and simply learn from what we know about what Christ taught, it shifts us from rituals, externally imposed expectations and rules, judgment and condemnation of others, into the unity consciousness that Christ actually taught. Yeshua's teachings provide a blueprint for understanding and embodying Christ consciousness. His life exemplified humility, love, and unity, demonstrating the potential for humanity to transcend the physical realm's limitations and embrace a higher spiritual calling. His teachings beckon us to transcend the nearly unconscious state of being we exist in this physical realm, where base desires and emotions wreak suffering and havoc on humanity. He teaches us that we too can awaken and arise above this state into a higher state of being where heaven can exist on earth. So I'm going to quote from the New Testament in John chapter 14, verse 12. Jesus makes a remarkable statement that Christianity as a whole want to ignore. And it says, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do shall he do also, and greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto my Father." This teaching underscores the idea that Jesus envisioned humanity awakening to their spiritual potential, not just following him, but surpassing his works by embodying the same divine consciousness that he demonstrated. This consciousness calls for creating, quote, heaven on earth through love, service, and unity. Jesus never said that anyone was born inherently evil, nor did he tell anyone that they could do nothing good on their own. These are Christian teachings in the Christian church today, and yet they are things Jesus never said. You can't claim to be, quote, Christian, meaning of Christ, when you embrace teachings of all kinds of things outside of what Jesus actually taught. This was a later theological development. In fact, Jesus taught that we are light bearers in the world. Rather than preaching to people about their depravity and evil, sinful natures, Jesus calls people to embrace their divine role as bearers of light and goodness in the world. And we see this in Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 16. You are the light of the world, a town built on a hill that cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. This stands in direct contradiction to the notion that human beings are inherently evil and unable to do anything good. This does not mean that some individuals do not choose to turn away from their divine nature as a light bearer, because we know that people do, and that is a part of their free will. They turn away from the essence of where they came from and who they truly are. There are definitely people who do, but that doesn't mean that all people are inherently bad. Jesus is teaching all people to embrace the light within, to awaken to their true nature, and to shine that light out into the world, to awaken others and show them the way. Jesus also taught about the oneness of humanity with the divine, which is another thing that the Christian church of today wants to deny as well. Because if you can't make people feel like fundamentally there's something wrong with them and they need you in order to fix it, they don't actually need you, right? Because they can access to the divine within themselves and a direct connection to the divine. But we see this in John chapter 17, verses 21 through 23. And this is in a prayer that Jesus prayed. And he said, that all of them may be one. Father, just as you are in me and I am in you, may they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them glory that you gave me, that they may be as one as we are one, I in them and you in me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. Now this is a beautiful scripture, beautiful sentiment, and reflects the essence of Christ consciousness, the understanding that we are all interconnected, united in one spirit, and called to live in harmony with one mind and one heart. Christianity ignores the fact that in the beginning of verse 21, he says that all of them may be one. Yes, I pause because I want that to sink in. And they also skip the part where it says they may also be in us, essentially saying that humanity is also in Jesus and in God. These are key points, that all of humanity is one, and all of humanity is one with the divine. This saying is a beautiful reminder that we are all one, and we are all a part of the unconditional love and unity with the divine. And as we move on to the next concept, I want to point out that this is my favorite aspect of Christ consciousness. And it is an aspect that every religion on earth fails miserably to see. Even non-Christian religions fail miserably in this, and that is the equality of all people. All people. Jesus was a champion of women in his time. He elevated women, which was revolutionary at the time. It would be revolutionary today in religious circles. A striking example of Christ's teaching about women and actions towards them is found in Luke chapter 10, verses 38 through 42. And this is a story of Mary and Martha. Mary is sitting at Jesus' feet. I'm sure most people are familiar with this. And she's listening to his teachings. A lot of people don't recognize the significance of this. Christians are completely unaware of the fact that in this story, Martha isn't just upset with Mary because she isn't helping her in the kitchen. She is also protesting Mary sitting in a position that traditionally was reserved for male disciples of a rabbi. The position that Mary was sitting in is women were not allowed to sit at the feet of a rabbi and hear their teachings. So this is more of the reality of this than she's just saying, come and help me in the kitchen. When Martha protests, Jesus defends Mary's choice, saying, Mary has chosen what is better, or Mary has chosen the better part, depending on the translation that you're reading, and it will not be taken away from her. This act was revolutionary in the context of Jewish culture, where women were often excluded from formal spiritual instruction. They were not allowed to sit at the feet of a rabbi and hear the teachings. Jesus elevated Mary to the position of a disciple, which was only reserved for men in that time. Jesus shattered hierarchical structures and emphasized the equal dignity and worth of all individuals. This contrasts starkly with later Christian traditions, influenced by Paul, of course, not Jesus, that subordinated women. And I think this is where a lot of people have so much issue with Christ, with Jesus, Yeshua, however you want to term that, him, because Christianity and their dogma has applied a lot of toxic attitudes and behaviors to Christianity, which they claim to follow Jesus, and yet they use all of these abusive things from Paul and other parts of Scripture and apply it to God in general. And this is why so many people have an issue, when in reality, none of this had anything to do with Jesus in the first place. Jesus was elevating women. It was Paul who was subjugating them. And I think that says everything you need to know. I find it inexcusable that religious people refuse to see how Jesus treated women and continue to subjugate women while quoting a man who killed Christians and whose teachings often stood and still do in direct contrast to what Jesus did and taught. Christ consciousness aligns seamlessly with modern spiritual practices such as mindfulness, inner peace, unconditional love. It transcends the divisions of ego, hierarchies, and the low vibration actions of the physical realm, guiding humanity toward a higher state of being. That's the whole point. The problem is when achieving a higher state of being, this, forgiveness of sins that Christians may promote, overcoming your sins, it's all external. It makes you a victim. You have no control over yourself. You have no ability to stop any behaviors that you would like to overcome. It's all based on an external source coming in and influencing you. And this is why you find so many people in Christianity struggling with the same things that all of humanity does, despite the fact that they claim to be more spiritual than all the rest of humanity, when in reality they are not. They're religious, but they're not spiritual. As we awaken to this divine awareness, we recognize the oneness of all life and the dignity inherent in every individual. Peace and unity will flourish when humanity embraces this shared consciousness, creating a world where love reigns supreme and shadows are transcended. Christ's teachings at their core call for the embodiment of divine love and unity. By living out this consciousness, we fulfill his vision of becoming one as he was one with the Father, and usher in a reality where heaven meets earth in heart-based consciousness. So let's move on to the holiday season as a catalyst for awakening. The holiday season is meant to be a time for reflection, gratitude, and connection, at least from a spiritual perspective. Yet all too often, it becomes a whirlwind of consumerism and busyness. We find ourselves caught in a cycle of buying things we don't need, while others struggle to survive. We overindulge in food, while many go hungry. We run ourselves ragged from concerts to parties, with little awareness of the present moment. And what is the result? Exhaustion, stress, and a missed opportunity to experience the true spirit of the season. It's time to stop the madness. What if, instead of this frenzied routine, we embrace the holiday season as a time to slow down, to reflect, to love, and to serve? What if we viewed this season as a chance to embody Christ consciousness, a way of living that prioritizes love, unity, and honoring the dignity of others? So this year, my family decided to do something different, and this was spurred on by my husband. It was his idea. We gave up the tradition of exchanging gifts among the adults. And when I'm talking about the adults, this is, my parents and my adult siblings. Instead, we contacted a women's shelter to see what they needed. They provided us with a list of essential items for the women and children in their care, along with gift ideas for them as well. Together, we shopped for these items, each of us focusing on the needs of the people we had never met, but whose struggles we felt deeply. My brother shared how his children had the most beautiful experience picking out gifts for the children of the shelter, who would otherwise go without. This act of giving brought our family closer and filled our hearts with a joy that no material gift could have matched. This is Christ consciousness in action. It's about stepping outside of ourselves, recognizing the interconnectedness of all humanity, and serving others with love and compassion. This is the one thing that most spirituality teachers fail to recognize. Instead of loudly proclaiming karma, or there is no evil or sin, there is no bad in the world, or you chose your life, therefore you deserve it, as part of your plan for yourself. It's time to stop victim blaming and step up to true Christ consciousness, which calls us to serve others without judgment. The idea of karma is judgment. The idea that you chose this suffering in this life for yourself, you wanted it, is judgment. It isn't even judgment for the perpetrator. It's judgment on the victim, and this needs to stop. Unless you were physically present in some pre-earth life and personally saw someone choose something, the only thing you have the right to say or do is offer love, compassion, empathy, understanding, and help. I want to recognize, so before I get into this, I cannot emphasize this enough. You don't know what someone else chose in some pre-earth life. You have no idea, and you have no way of knowing. You have no way of knowing of whether this maybe just was a part of the unpredictability that comes with people having free will. They could choose differently at any moment. We don't know. We don't have all of the answers. And so when without full context and all of the answers, instead of proclaiming karma, instead of proclaiming you chose something when I don't know if you did or not, get off your high horse and do something. Okay, off the soapbox. I want to recognize that the holiday season can be stressful. Family dynamics can be very difficult to navigate. This is very true for me, especially this year. But it has been in past years as well. Other people experience loneliness. They may not have a lot of family or friends. There's a lot of financial pressure and stress around this time of year. And all of that rises to the surface. Shouldn't a season dedicated to Christ consciousness be filled with visiting those without family, inviting them to be a part of our celebrations, ensuring that no one goes without food, shelter, company, and most of all, love? When we approach the holidays through the lens of Christ consciousness, we discover a deeper meaning. The focus shifts from what we can get to what we can give. It becomes a season of unity, where we honor the divine value of every person, from the family member sitting across the table to the stranger in need of a warm meal. By embracing this perspective, we transform the holiday season into a sacred time, a time of love, service, and spiritual awakening. This shift not only blesses those we serve, but also enriches our own lives in profound and lasting ways. Let this holiday season be a catalyst for awakening, a time when we embody the true essence of Christ consciousness and truly bring light into the world. I want to highlight a very stark contradiction from the religion I grew up in. As I walked the streets of Salt Lake City on a cold winter evening, looking at the wonder of the Christmas lights, carrying a hot chocolate in my hands, I watched as members of my former church hustle and bustle through the shops and stores on the streets without a care in the world. As they walk right by homeless men and women wrapped in blankets, sitting on the street, quietly asking for some spare change. These members of my former church are taught to pay no mind to these people. They are taught that these people will probably just go buy sinful things like cigarettes or alcohol with that money. Walk on by. Do not give them any money. Then these religious people who have ignored the poor and needy sitting right in front of them stand at a kiosk vending machine where they insert money to buy an item for an individual in a foreign country. They take a selfie to show all their followers how charitable they were this Christmas season. They continue their binge shopping with a smile on their face, feeling all warm and fuzzy in their hearts because they think they have done good today. This is not Christ consciousness. We have no right to judge the homeless man or woman who is sitting outside in frigid temperatures asking for money. Even if they do buy alcohol with that money I give, I do not judge them. I love them and I give because they are in need. No matter how they got to this place in their life, no matter what they choose to do to cope with the hardship in their life, is not for me to judge. I am simply here to give and to love, and that is all. So I want to move on to steps to embody Christ consciousness during the holidays, because I think this is really important to kind of help you learn how to shift into this space in your mind and in your heart. Number 1, practice unconditional love. Now, this can be hard, but I want to emphasize that unconditional love begins with honoring both yourself and others. So before I get into the easier parts of this, if you have toxic family members, it's essential to set healthy boundaries. But also releasing resentment and bitterness. So if this is what you are dealing with, maybe you could set an intention this season to begin the healing work of releasing the past and letting go of the resentment and bitterness. And why would you do that? So that you can embody joy and happiness again in your own life. You can leave behind the people who are not willing to heal, not willing to show up in healthy ways. You can leave that behind. But you have to release it so that you can embody the joy and happiness in your own life and rise above. But if that isn't your experience, you may choose to focus on the positive relationships in your life and express your love in profound and intentional ways. Consider writing a heartfelt note of gratitude to someone who's impacted your life, letting them know how much they mean to you. Love, when given freely and without conditions, reflects the true spirit of Christ consciousness. Number 2, cultivate inner peace. Amid the chaos of the holiday season, carve out time for meditation, prayer, or quiet moments of stillness, whichever one of these resonates for you. These practices help you connect spiritually, reflect on what truly matters, and care for your own well-being. Inner peace isn't about avoiding the busyness. It's about finding serenity within it. It is about being present in the moment, taking in all the sights and sounds and beauty. By nurturing your inner world, you create the capacity to share calm and kindness with the world around you. If you find yourself in the midst of chaos in a shopping center, take a moment to pause, breathe, and then observe your surroundings with curiosity and wonder. See the Christmas lights and decorations. Watch the people as they rush on by. Just take a moment to be present. These micro meditation moments can help center you and keep you focused on your own inner peace. Number 3, serve with compassion. Acts of service embody the heart of the season and Christ consciousness. Go beyond small gestures. Step out of your comfort zone and serve in a way that stretches you. Volunteer at a local soup kitchen. Sponsor a family in need. Or personally deliver warm clothing and meals to the homeless. The key is to make your service personal and connected, not transactional. When you give with your whole heart, you bring Christ consciousness to life and make tangible differences in someone else's life. True charity is about looking into the faces of those you serve. It is about feeling with your whole heart and offering your loving energy and essence to those in need. Transactional, quote, service, where you give money to some obscure charity and will never see where that money goes, is not what true service is about. It disconnects you from the humanity of the people your money is meant to help. It disconnects you from compassion, empathy, and love because you do not actually have to stand in the midst of those who are suffering. It isn't enough to merely sign the check and call it service or charity. Number 4, celebrate unity. The holidays offer an opportunity to recognize and celebrate our interconnectedness. Find ways to deepen your connection with others, with nature, and with the divine. Whether it's sharing meaningful conversations, walking in nature's quiet beauty, or joining hands with others in a shared act of kindness, embracing unity reminds us that we are all one. In celebration of unity, I challenge you this season to find someone who is alone, maybe a widow or a single man or woman who doesn't have family nearby. Whatever the circumstance might be, find someone who may spend the holidays alone and make the effort to go spend time with them. Invite them to your holiday parties or invite them over on Christmas morning and provide a gift for them. You may choose to visit a nursing home or another place where individuals often spend the holidays alone. We celebrate unity when we refuse to allow anyone to be overlooked, left alone, or forgotten. We honor the dignity of all people when we include all people, because in the end, we are all interconnected with the divine. This collective spirit of love and togetherness is the foundation for peace and harmony. By practicing these steps, we embody Christ consciousness during the holidays, transforming this season into a time of love, reflection, and profound connection. Moving into integrating, so we've talked about the holiday season, right? Everyone talks about this. Christmas time, usually during Christmas time, the soup kitchens are pretty full. But I would be willing to bet that it's not as full of volunteers throughout the year. There's probably a lot of donations to food banks and other places during the holidays, but probably not as much at other times. Because in reality, the Christian way is not to embody Christ consciousness into their being. It's always something outside of them. So I want to talk about integrating Christ consciousness into daily life beyond the holidays. Christ consciousness isn't confined to the holiday season. It's a way of life, a spiritual awareness that becomes part of you. It is you. You embody this. And then it directs your everyday actions and intentions. The consciousness of the Anointed One invites us to release resentment, bitterness, to live with compassion, to serve those in need as a natural expression of who we are. Widows, the lonely, the forgotten. These aren't just seasonal concerns. These are individuals who need love and connection every single day of the year. Integrating Christ consciousness means embodying this higher awareness consistently, allowing it to guide how we show up in the world. Carrying forward the essence of Christ consciousness requires intentional, inspired action. Here are ways to embody this consciousness beyond the holidays. Number 1, invite connection. Regularly invite those who are alone into your home for meals or gatherings, whether it's a party or a simple afternoon together. These gestures create meaningful connections. You can also choose to visit them in their home, take over some cookies, invite friendly conversation, get to know your neighbors. Go out and foster a sense of community. You can choose to invite connection in so many ways. Number 2, engage personally. Visit a widow or someone elderly in your community. Spend time playing games, talking, or sharing stories. It's not about grand gestures, but showing up with love and attention. Visit a nursing home, serve in a soup kitchen, pass out the necessities to the homeless. Find ways to connect with those in need and provide needed love, care, support, and assistance. Number 3, notice and respond. Make it a daily practice to notice someone in need and offer help. It could be a coworker struggling with something, a stranger needing a kind word, or even a family needing support. So I want to give you an example of this. Being aware of the people around you. My husband, years ago, was driving down busy State Street, and he saw a man standing at the bus stop. It was probably 12 degrees outside, well below freezing. and he was rubbing his hands together trying to keep them warm because he did not have gloves. My husband immediately pulled over, got in the trunk, pulled out his brand new ski gloves, and offered them to this man. That is what it means to be aware of your surroundings, be aware of those in need that are around you. Get off your phone. Get off the phone. Don't drive on your phone. Do not stand in lines on your phone. Observe. Open your eyes and train yourself to become aware of those around you and choose to serve without a second thought. This is Christ consciousness in action. Number 4, serve with presence. Take meals to the homeless, but go a step further. Sit with them. Share a conversation. Let them feel seen and valued. The act of presence transforms a simple meal into a moment of genuine connection. And I know I tell these stories all the time, and you're just going to have to get used to it. My husband did this. He took pizza to a homeless encampment in a freeway underpass. Sitting in his business clothes, eating with the homeless under the freeway underpass, and listening to their stories. It isn't about pitying them and just throwing money at them. True heart-centered consciousness means you sit with them, you listen to them, you honor them, and you offer your love to them. Christ consciousness isn't just about what you do, it's about how you do it, with love, humility, and an open heart. So I'm going to tell you a story about service, just doing service in your daily life. In 2015, my family was assigned by our church to interview an elderly woman, Xena, who was a widow, who lived across the street from us. We had to interview her for an upcoming event at the church. When we met her, she invited us in, and we completed the interview, and then she invited us to play card games with her. Before we left, she invited us to return the next week, and we played games again. What started as a simple visit turned into a weekly tradition. Every Wednesday night at 7 p.m., we'd visit Xena to play skip bow and other card games. Over the games, we laughed, talked, and connected. And at the end of the evening, we shared cookies and juice. We kept up this routine for 7 years. Every single week on Wednesday night at 7 for 7 years. Even after moving 2 hours away in 2022, we still visit Xena. Maybe not every week, but we still visit with her. She's now 97 years old. She's become like a grandmother to us. And our relationship is a reminder of what it means to embody Christ consciousness. It's not about grand, sporadic gestures. It's about showing up consistently with love, kindness, and care. Integrating Christ consciousness into daily life means living with intentional love, practicing presence, and serving others with a compassionate heart. Beyond the holidays, it becomes a lifestyle of honoring the divine in everyone, creating meaningful connections and spreading light wherever you go. Christ consciousness is not a season. It's a way of being. As we wrap up this episode, let's reflect on what we've explored today. Christ consciousness is more than a holiday ideal. It's a way of living that transcends seasons. We've discussed the importance of embodying this consciousness through unconditional love, cultivating inner peace, serving with compassion, and fostering unity. These practices not only transform the holiday season, but can bring deep meaning and purpose to our lives throughout the year. Now it's your turn. How can you embrace Christ consciousness this holiday season? What steps can you take to serve others, create meaningful connections, and embody love in action? Take a moment to reflect and consider how these practices might look in your own life. Thank you for joining me today. I am so grateful for your presence in this space. If you've been inspired by this episode, I encourage you to click the donate button below and donate. I encourage you to share your experiences or insight on social media. Connect with our community online. Together, we can inspire and support one another on this journey toward higher consciousness. And remember, Christ consciousness isn't something you celebrate, it's something you live.